Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Breakthrough Blueprint, where we talk to entrepreneurs about their struggles that they've overcome, the successes that they've had. And today I have my good friend Danish. He's an Airbnb expert. I'll hand it over to him to introduce himself.
Awesome. I appreciate you having me on. But yeah, my name's Daanish Azim. I'm 28 years old. I currently reside in Florida, more specifically towards like the Miami area. And a little bit quick journey about myself, I guess, is I've pretty much been involved like in business, entrepreneurship since I was young, around like 18, 19 years old. Started off with like a reselling phone business that made my like first pretty much six figures by the time I was like 20 doing that. Got involved in other businesses like network marketing. Then I did crypto. Eventually got into like life insurance sales a few years ago. But that's when I also got introduced more specifically towards what I do today, which is pretty much Airbnb rental arbitrage. And in the last 3 years since getting started with Airbnb, I've been able to kind of scale my business to over about 18 properties now, doing over 80K a month on Airbnb's platform.
That is amazing. Love to hear your success. I guess what made you decide to even try Airbnb?
Yeah, so interesting enough, like was doing life insurance sales, doing pretty well with it, right? Like I wasn't struggling. I was usually making between 10 to 20,000 a month pretty consistently. But as I was doing that by month like 5 or 6, I was kind of tired with the work, right? Like it's every day you wake up 8 a.m., you're dialing typically older people because that's your leads. And I just kind of got tired of it. It felt kind of to me like very slavish. And for me, it's like I've always enjoyed like having my freedom, which with that specifically like role, I didn't feel like I had that. So that's when I kind of was like, okay, what business can I start? Because sales is great to make money, but at the end of the day, it's like if I was not working, I was not going to make money that day. So that's when I was like, okay, what else is there that I can actually do? That's when I came across the Airbnb business model. In fact, on like a YouTube video by Grant Cardone, and he was talking about it with another guy, Brian Page, about how it works, what it is, and I had never heard about it before that. And when I started doing that, I started researching more about it. I started watching more YouTube videos, got into different like courses, eventually different coaching programs, and just like any other business, eventually I just decided to take action and got my first property a few months after like kind of learning about the business model. And short story, 3 years later, as I went through some of the failures, had some success, we've scaled it successfully to like 18 properties. That's pretty much now a year doing about a million in revenue. So pretty decent level, but I think there's always a different level to take it to still.
Wow, that is incredible. So, I guess then what were some of the biggest struggles that you've had to overcome in building this business?
Yeah. So I guess biggest struggles for me personally was I kind of came off a situation like years ago where I kind of went through a bad like credit situation, lost everything I had. So my credit was not in the right situation. So I actually had to leverage 0% business credit cards like through my dad. And then eventually I got business partners that had good credit, but I was able to bring value on like the other side of the business, like knowing how to do the business, finding properties, knowing how to actually develop this into a proper company. And that was a little bit of a struggle. But the other struggle for me was just like learning how to put all the pieces of the pie together with this kind of business. Like knowing how to actually hire people and making sure you have right systems in place, making sure you're consistently knowing how to attract those good reviews. In the beginning, at times was a struggle and just automating most of the business. But as I learned about different tools and how to actually like how to delegate stuff, how to hire virtual assistants, like the business today, even with 18 properties, I feel like for me it's easier than when I even had like 5 properties.
It's amazing and super inspiring because I'm sure a lot of people will listen to this who are or have been where you are with no money in the bank or whatever it is. And to see you go from that to where you are now is incredible, especially because you're so young. I know you mentioned automations. What sort of automations do you use?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest automations in like doing Airbnb, one is going to be your cleaners. So there's a specific website called like Turnover B&B that if you want to go find cleaners, you can actually go to this website. You can sync your Airbnb listing with this platform, and now your cleaners, instead of you messaging them like, "Hey, I need a cleaning done tomorrow," it's like your cleaners calendar already for them. They'll see when they need to go for a cleaning. Now they're going for a cleaning, they're taking pictures, whatever, without you having to like remember to send them, "Hey, this is when you need to go."
Hmm.
Another big one was for pricing. Before I used to think like, "Oh, you just price every single day whatever like you kind of determine," versus I use a tool called Price Labs. So that tool basically is an algorithm tool that will price your property with like the right settings in like every single weekday and weekend is a different price based on like supply, demand, your seasonality. So now you're able to like maximize your revenue, but then also maximize like your occupancy on your properties.
Gotcha. So it sounds like one of the ways that you've been successful also is using a data-driven approach.
Yep, 100%, 100%.
Got it. And so I know that since you've become like so successful, I've seen you post, stories about your wins, and a lot of them, which is great, is serving or giving back to your parents and your family. I think that's super inspiring. Can you talk a little bit more about like the importance of family?
Yeah, so of course, like I grew up in a brown household, pretty strict parents of mine, but in a good way. I think like having strict parents sucks at times when you want to go do stuff, but it's good in times of like people that don't sometimes have strict parents, they end up doing bad stuff down the road.
Hmm.
So coming from that family, it was good because I was always like taken care of. Like I never had to struggle for food or anything super financially to like any certain crazy degree. And I always saw my parents like taking care of whatever I needed. I didn't have to struggle. They didn't tell me to go get the worst job just to make some money. That was always important to me. So like when I started making some money, my goal was always like, okay, how can I make sure I'm giving back to my parents? So like I had bought my mom a car that she always wanted, which was like a BMW 5 Series. Like I remember I had bought one 5, 6 years ago. It was like a 530i, like 2010. But then I found my mom, she always wanted it. So I found a good deal, ended up buying her like a 2015 series. I bought my dad simple stuff. Like I bought him phones, a laptop when he needed it, giving him whatever money, even like I still support them to this day, even though I don't live there. I'll
Hmm.
support my dad to pay some of the mortgage.
Hmm.
So I think it's just important no matter like when you're having success, you don't want to take all the responsibility because there's always someone that's taking care of you like when you didn't maybe have everything.
Completely understand. That's why I think it's interesting when people say that they're self-made. Like literally you never had help, you never had a mentor, advice, a teacher your whole life. Like no one is truly self-made, even if like they didn't have parents that just handed them everything.
100%.
That's amazing. I mean, both of us come from immigrant backgrounds. I think having those strict parents keeps you on the right track and shows you the value of hard work, which a lot of people, that's a very difficult lesson or skill to learn later on in life. So it's it's better when you learn it when you're young, even if it takes some drilling into you and some yelling and stuff from
Yeah.
the parents. But I guess so you have 18 properties now under management. Do you have partners within that business?
Yeah, so I have a few partners that are involved within like building my Airbnb portfolio.
Hmm.
Now, do I recommend partners? Like I tell a lot of people, I don't always recommend it. So if you have partners, it can be a good thing and also a bad thing because now you have to learn how to learning how to deal with different people or different stuff. So I don't always recommend people to do partners, but for me, it kind of worked out and it's been super beneficial because now it's like if I remember I had a partner that he was going through a wedding situation. So for like a week or two, he was of course super busy. He didn't have to respond. So I was able to take care of stuff. But then there might be times I'm going to like a business event for a few days and I'll tell him and now I don't have to worry about it because I know on the back end he's there to take care of stuff. So having partners and of course you can scale. There's different values that maybe he's better at or maybe you're better at that can help you scale a company a lot bigger and faster. Of course, just like anything, it's going to have its pros and it's going to have its cons.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I've personally had some issues with partners in the past. Currently, my partners are amazing, but sometimes you have to go through those bad teaching moments to determine what you really want and need in a partnership. It's like having a relationship. You have to date them,
Yeah.
get to know them, vet them, make sure things are good, and hopefully there aren't any surprises down the line. But that's awesome that you found like some solid partners who are on the same wavelength, driven, responsible, don't just think that someone else is going to do all the work. That's really important in that.
Yep.
I know that you're really big on personal development. I've seen that you attend conferences. You've talked about Grant Cardone. What are some of the most fruitful conferences that you've done or coaching programs or anything like that?
Yeah, so honestly, in the last like since I've been involved in business entrepreneurship since I was like 19, 20 years old, I've been to a lot of big conferences. Now, I guess from what I would say is like I think what's more beneficial, and it really just kind of depends where you're at in the stage of like your entrepreneurship journey. I think going to smaller masterminds is a lot more fruitful. So someone that's maybe like considering like should they go to a big event where it's like 10,000 people or should you go to a mastermind that has like 20 people? I would a lot most times now say like go to the smaller places, which typically will probably cost you more. Like average event to go to a big event, you might pay a couple $100. But to go to usually a mastermind where it's more exclusive with 10, 20, 30 people, Usually I've been to those, they're usually in the range of like 2,000, 3,000, $5,000, but I've made so much more out of them. Like I build those connections. Like I've been to little mastermind events that I'm still friends to date with like people I went to an event 3 years ago. So I think personal development, like whether it's reading books, listening to podcasts, YouTube videos, going to events, like plays a big factor in like having success. But the biggest thing is like it just helps you change your mindset, but then also like meeting the right people along the way. Because business itself or entrepreneurship is hard. But if you can meet other people that are also doing it, it makes your journey a lot, one, number fun, and number two, like easier.
Definitely, and I agree with that. Like, a lot of people are hesitant sometimes when I talk about those, whether it's a conference, you should probably get VIP because that's a similar thing, is you're going to be around the people who can afford that and who are there also then probably doing really well in their business, and one referral, one connection could make you thousands or millions of dollars. So when you look at it that way, I think that's really important. And I know you were living in the Chicago area, but now you're in Fort Lauderdale. What prompted your move?
Yeah, so before I actually moved out to like the Florida, Miami area, I had been out here over like probably 10, 15 times in the past like 3, 4 years. Always liked it out here. Of course, coming from a Brown family, it was like it was a hard move, especially on my mom to like try to move out. But eventually I just knew like I would have a lot more growth, like living by myself, being in a different area. So that was the biggest thing for me. And just honestly moving out, I tell most people is like probably the biggest life changing thing for me. Or I think it would be for a lot of people. Like I've heard people like, "Hey, when you move out, that's when your life changes," and I would honestly say, like, I 100% agree with that. So, moving out, I think, can play a big factor. If you're, like, an entrepreneur, get to a place, in my opinion, is, like, somewhere that you can kinda be motivated by, like, inspired by, around the right environment will help you, like, level up way faster.
Definitely, and it seems like just the people you're probably meeting there in your building, when you go out on a daily basis, it's like crazy networking.
100%, yeah. It's way better than being stuck at home where you can't meet people or see any kind of cool views or anything like that.
Mhm, and one of the things that I love about Miami, I used to live there, I'm planning to be there for a few months next year, is like, you're just inspired. You realize sometimes that you don't even have subconscious limiting beliefs, and then you see someone driving a crazy car or talk about their business or they're a billionaire, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, like, I have not been setting my goals high enough."
Yeah.
But I guess what are
It's
some of
funny
the
because I was talking with a friend of mine literally today, younger guy, 23, 22 years old, and he's like, "Bro, I'm thinking of moving to Bali, like, for 3 months, 4 months," and I'm like, "That's great, but here's the difference between, let's say, like, living in Miami area or being in Bali. It's like, Bali's great, you'll meet good people and all this stuff, but you're most likely not gonna be meeting people that are doing very, like, higher level stuff, most likely, because people that are making a lot of money, they don't wanna live in a cheap place. So if you wanna meet the right people that, like, is gonna make you think bigger, because we went to Miami recently in, like, Brickell, which is, like, the nice, cool area where you see the supercars consistently, and it just makes you feel like you're broke. But if you go to Bali and you're making 10K a month, you're gonna feel like the top dog. You go to Miami and you see the Lambos and you're in a freaking, even me, for, like, me being in a Beamer, I'm like, "Shit, I feel broke." So that's that's the thing, is, like, move out to somewhere that, like, you're forced to level up versus, like, I think going to nice spots, like, I've been like, you've lived in Medellin, where it's, like, great people, great things, but sometimes you feel, in my opinion, like, you feel like you can't think the biggest because 'cause you're not seeing a Lambo there, you're not seeing a Ferrari, and you go to a place like Miami, you see the Ferrari, Lambo, you're like, you feel like a brokey. Versus in Miami or Colombia, I could feel like, "Yo, I'm making money, I can spend freely." Over here, it's like, "Shit, $300 is gone just on food right there."
Definitely. No, you're totally right. And I think just being in Miami, where also there's so many like online entrepreneurs doing crazy things, like constantly sharing their tips and tricks. I have such a great network in Miami, especially from the last year, just going to different conferences. And I'm like, okay, now I need to go back and spend some time really building and networking, growing there. And I know you mentioned 0% like business funding. Can you talk a little bit more about that and how you leveraged it to grow your business?
Yeah, 100%. Any business, there's 2 ways you're gonna typically start. Number 1, any business is gonna require some kind of investment usually, but it's like you can either have the money saved up to start a business, which most people can't even save up $10,000, or the easier route is, like, if you have good credit, which is typically sitting above, like, a 680, 700 plus, the banks, Chase, Amex, where you can get approved for 0% business cards, 10, 20, $50,000 plus, in the 0% business card for 12 months, and then literally just leverage that money to get into Airbnb properties. And typically, if you get into a good deal, you can break even in 5, 6, 7, 8 months. So you have enough money to make the profit, pay off the card. Now you're able to consistently cash flow and put money like straight into your pockets. Having the ability to get 0% cards, I think played like a big factor, especially in a business like doing Airbnb arbitrage.
Definitely. And I know like there are people on social media saying like, "Oh, Airbnb is dead, this and that." What's your opinion on this business?
Yeah, so I would say has it got more saturated? 100% because there's more people talking about it. So, like, 4 years ago, 3 years ago when I, like, first heard about it, it was nowhere known as what it is today because you have more people on social media, people learning the business, more people trying to get into the coaching side of it. So, there's more people that are tending to do the business model, but I still tell people to this day because 'cause I'm still, like, actively in the game, like, I just picked up a new property, it's a 15 bedroom. So, it's like I'm actually still in the game doing it, and the biggest thing I've noticed today's market versus like 3, 4 years ago is that you have to do things a lot more professionally now. Like 3 years ago, I could have listed a property. I could have probably used iPhone photos and got booked out. Now you can't really do that. Like you have to have a good furniture, good design, professional photos, know how to price your property correctly, actually be in like a really good market. So knowing how to run the business professionally, you'll still make money. But if you run it still as an amateur where you do the most basic furniture, you do the most basic photos, you don't know how to price correctly, you'll get destroyed pretty much in today's marketplace.
Interesting. Yeah, because I hear a lot of horror stories about people. I have a friend who the cleaner wasn't doing a good job and the reviews went down, and there are a lot of moving parts about it. But I know that you offer coaching and you have a really big community of people that you have created into success stories. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I mean, I anything I've ever done, honestly, since I've started like getting into the business world, for me, it's always been like alright, if I learn how to make money, I'm gonna try to at least tell other people or to, like, document my journey. Even when I was in crypto, I started doing super well. I had a free group, like I think I built a free group to, like, 500 members on Telegram at one point. Didn't ever offer nothing, and then eventually opened up, like, my own inner circle, made decent money with the consulting, coaching side of it, and then same thing with Airbnb. As I started it, I was kind of documenting my journey, showing, like, "Hey, this is a new business I'm getting into." I did a free Telegram, had about 100 people, like, get into my free Telegram where I'm just dropping some free game like, "Hey, I got this business card. This is how I did this. This is a group that I'm in that you can find Airbnb approved deals," and all these little things. And then eventually I had people reaching out to me like, "Oh, bro, like, can you show me how to do this?" So that's kind of when I shifted into like the coaching side, roughly 2 years ago, and then kind of built it into a pretty decently successful business where we've now taught nearly 100 plus people on like how to start an Airbnb business, how to go about the funding, how to get your property, how to correctly list it, how can you scale to make this eventually possibly a full-time income. So I tell most people like any business that someone does, you can go two routes, right? It's like you can go down the free route of the Google, the YouTube, the Chat GPT and get information that you need. The only thing when you're like going for free information, I've noticed for most people, and it's the same for me, it's like two things. One, if you don't pay any kind of money, you usually don't pay attention to it. It doesn't hurt for you to like push forward on it. Number two is when you're looking stuff online, it's too much confusion. If you're trying to find YouTube videos, like for me, it's beneficial because I know what I maybe need to look for to like fix a issue in the business. But if you're someone brand new starting and everyone has a different method, like this is how you should start every meeting and this is how you should do it. Now you find like 3, 4 different people to watch from, you're in analysis paralysis and you never get the business started. I think what happens to 90% of people, they watch a YouTube video, oh, this is Airbnb. Then you see a YouTube video talking about Airbnb is dead. Then you watch that, then you're like, oh, it doesn't work. Versus like, hey, if you just find someone that knows what they're doing and you find a coach or a mentor or a course or whatever the solution might be for you, it's like you can actually narrow down on one path. And it's a lot easier to create success with like having a coach or mentor compared to you trying to do it yourself. Even though information's out there, having someone that's like in your back pocket's a big difference compared to you just only having access to information.
Definitely. I definitely agree. Well, that's so much amazing information. Is there any like last words of encouragement that you want to leave with our viewers? Anyone who's struggling?
Yeah. So I mean, of course, like in my 8, 9 years of like just being in the business entrepreneurship route, having my ups and downs, I guess the biggest thing like I would tell most people that is starting a business or is on the cusp of like, hey, maybe you're going through failures. It's like if you actually decide to lock in for like 1 or 2 years, get around the right people, cut out like the people that don't motivate you or inspire you or have negative things to say, you can literally change your life in a year or two. Like I think that's realistically what it probably takes is like change an environment if you can, cut out the people like a lot of friends that I was friends with 5, 6 years ago, no, like, bad hate
Mhm.
against them in any kind of way, but if someone's doing a job that you don't wanna pursue, their opinions are gonna be different if you're trying to pursue a business.
Mhm.
So you have to kind of cut out, like, the old habits and the mentalities, get around a new habit, mentalities, find coaches, mentors, the right people, and then for 1 or 2 years, it's like sacrifice stage. It's like, I remember now I'm gonna be honest, like, I have my fun here and there,
Mhm.
but I remember when I was in a sacrifice stage for, like, 2, 3 years, I didn't go to restaurants, I didn't go to dinners, I didn't go out, I wasn't trying to date someone or anything like that. It was just like, let me focus on working and then stack up the money, and then, okay, now you go have your fun here and there. So that's, like, the biggest advice is, like, you're really trying to level up, it's like, do all these things, 1 or 2 years, you could be in, like, a different situation.
Completely agree with that. Well, thank you so much, Danish. I know you dropped a lot of valuable information here. I will put your contact information in the show notes so people know where to reach you. But thank you so much. And for everyone else, please stay tuned for the next episode of the Breakthrough Blueprint, where we continue to talk to amazing, accomplished entrepreneurs just like him and how learn how they overcame their struggles.
Awesome, appreciate you having me on.
No problem.